Oh shit! I wasn't prepared for this at all. Wow, that was basically my excuse for flying around in a helicopter. This is Heliborne from JetCat Games. It's developed on the Unity engine. You can pick it up for around £15, 20 US dollars, or 500,000 Canadian dollars. What is it? Get behind the cockpits of the best helicopters in the world. Play from the classic machines of the 1950s to the modern gunships of the 21st century. Play missions with your friends and compete with players from all around the world in various multiplayer modes. And of course, the devs did send us some keys for that. Thanks a lot, JetCat Game. So this is the ChairQAsition, where we take a look at some games that people send us and maybe give them some, put them through the ringer, give them some QA that they may have not gone through before going to release on Steam or whatever other service you got. So we rate them all with chairs. 1 chair means that it's crap. 2 chairs means that it's meh. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. And 4 chairs means it's so good I have to get closer to the camera. We also got our categories of doom, mixed with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So we do it in a bit of a round table these days. So Pedro, how did this work?
Actually, it worked reasonably well. It was very glaringly Unity, because the moment you started, you get the dark blue screen of nope. And it's the Unity bloop-a-noop.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
It has that nasty tendency of just spawning in the wrong screen all the goddamn time, even though I went into the prefs file and I set it to spawn on the active screen, and it just fucking doesn't. But then again, that's Unity nowadays. I don't even care anymore.
Is that a common thing? Because I use separate X screens like a sane person.
Yeah, no. If you have like the extended X desktop or twin view, like NVIDIA called it a while back, it does that constantly.
Yeah. I mean, I was playing this on the laptop with the i7 700 HQ and the 960M. And the only real issue I had with the working was those shader compile times when you just started up. It took forever.
Oh, it took a little bit, yeah.
I was a little concerned that like the game would just not work. But yeah, I actually, it did that thing where when you're just about to alt tab and kill it, just before you hit enter, then it shows up and you're like, God damn it. It knew what I was doing.
Could always be a thing. I didn't really have any of those issues. Separate X screen on the Ryzen 7 1700 Ubuntu 1710. Nothing to really complain about. Then you really shouldn't, I don't believe, because I mean, you could run this, I would dare say, on a calculator and or a low-end mobile device.
Yeah, no, the performance seems to be there. I haven't actually tried it on the laptop, but it does seem to have a good enough performance. On the 1080, I never really saw it drop below 50 at any point. So, hey,
yeah, on the 960M at 720p, it was running at like 150 odd frames a second. When I bump it up to 1080p, it would try to maintain about 60, and it would dip to about 47 at the lowest, but it was relatively consistent in above 50 FPS. So, for a Unity game like this, that's honestly better than what you can expect.
Yeah.
All right.
So, if we wanted to attach a chair, I think 4 is fair for mix with the working.
Yep.
Yeah.
4 all the way around.
4 to the floor. Well, at least for mix with the working. Up next is shiny and sounds. So I hope you like hearing, because that's all you're going to be hearing. There's some like generic guitar noodling that happens.
Well,
I would say hit mute and either put on "You Spin Me Right Round" or "Hatred Copter" by Death Clock, because you're going to get bored of whatever background music they have going on.
You can see that when you launched out in Vietnam, they were definitely going for something reminiscent of All Along the Watchtower, because I'm sorry, if you fly in a helicopter in fucking Vietnam, that's going to kick in your damn brain. What's it look like? You know what? I agree with you, Jordan, man. The choppers, they look legit enough. Not that I'm well versed, but it's like they look good enough to where I'm not going to say they stand out, but
they're visually distinct. You can tell them apart from one another.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Yeah, they very clearly put all of the visual effort into the helicopter itself, and it makes sense because that's what you're going to have on screen for the biggest part of the game. And there's one thing that really annoyed me, which was even at the higher settings, the pop-in is very much there. You can notice it. Even if you go into the options menu and you crank the draw distance all the way up, you can see the textures popping in, and the moment you realize it, you cannot unsee it. It's really annoying.
It is, with
Also-
all the foliage is just constantly like...
Yeah. And the soldier, like, the animations of the soldiers running, that is so bad. It's like, okay, so...
The soldiers are the worst, because you'll be flying to something, and then bullets will start shooting at you, and then like a good 5 seconds later, oh hey, here's the little blue things that you can shoot at, and so inevitably they get some cheap shots at you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was times you were like, where the fuck are they coming? I mean, it was, I guess on the realism simulator scale, maybe that was a thing, but you're like, well, all right, if you're going to show me these blue dots, do it consistent.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I guess going on with the aesthetics thing, the sounds, they're rather meh.
Also, one thing that I really noticed once I jacked the quality up to 1080p, because I was playing it at 720p on Thursday, was the level thing that controls your pitch or whatever, or that indicates your pitch or whatever, and your speed. When you have when you're in like the Afghanistan area where there's a lot of like white and lens flare, you cannot see where the hell it is. You cannot read it. Period. And that is very problematic, especially when you're about to crash into some mountains. We'll get to that in the control section.
Yeah, aesthetically speaking, it's nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
No. I would say probably about 2 chairs across. Would y'all agree?
So I'm going to say 2, because that basically means, listen, everything worked, everything made noise. This was, I don't think, visually impressive. But then again, I mean, this is a game basically geared for online multiplayer. And it looks a little bit mobile-ish, but I still think there's a lot of room to grow. But functionality, everything worked, right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So how about them controls, Ven?
So this particular brand of Nightmare Fuel, you got to experience first on Thursday when you had the bright fucking idea to break out your Areola controller.
When I had the bread idea, it's not by a mouse on the way home from work.
Also yes on that. I initially just started playing with it continuously for that streaming session. I was just using Waz to my gerbil. No issue right there. Nothing to complain about.
Yeah, and then you got introduced to the world of my pain.
Well, I attempted to use it because I was curious. You know, I do like torturing myself, and Frenchie picked me up the Areola controller for the sole purpose of causing me physical pain. It's like, well, I want him to get his money's worth out of it. Yeah, fuck that nightmare. I tried it with, no. Mm-mm.
No, they have some community presets for it, but the buttons are mapped out sanely, but just the physical action of controlling it does not work. Mind you, I went and bought this little cheap ass mouse for €5, and all of a sudden the game becomes a lot more playable when you can actually control the chopper.
Yeah, and the simple control mode, because they have like the simple control modes and the advanced control modes. I guess if you have a big ass joystick, I used to have one of those stupidly expensive Logitech ones. Don't know where it is, but it probably still exists somewhere. If you don't have that, you probably want to be playing in the simple control mode. And if you are, the mouse and keyboard, they actually let you control your helicopter reasonably well. It takes a little getting used to, but it's just a little. On Thursday, after just a few minutes of being in game, my brain sort of clicked.
It's something you can pick up, but here's a question for you, man. Is because this is straight up arcade. There's no attempt at simulation, any fucking thing in this.
Oh yeah.
And why the effort? Why the effort to get the whole joystick? Nobody's gonna be playing this with their fucking foot pedals and shit, man. All right, I'm sorry.
Not.
Somebody out there's like, I've been playing this.
controlling the helicopters proper, basically, as I learned the hard way, it controls like an actual helicopter. So you got to actually control your tilt, pitch, and yaw, and you got to tilt forward in order to accelerate forward, and if you tilt backwards, you go into reverse, and you can sort of control the acceleration and deceleration with the W and S keys, as it were. But either way, you're gonna end up crashing into some shit.
Oh yeah, no. Every now and again, you'll get very intimately acquainted with the side of a mountain, because you'll start to feel like you're actually in control and you're doing some swooping passes, just going sideways the whole time and hitting exactly what you want to. And then a mountain shows up out of nowhere and boom. So yeah, it is. I have absolutely no complaints about the simple controls, but it does take some getting used to.
Yeah, there's definitely that. I don't think this was ever. I mean, this game personally to me never struck me as something to be played with a controller. If you're brave enough and persistent enough, listen. Here's the thing about a Steam controller.
You can probably do it. Yeah,
you can do it. You could sit and map it to something that would actually work and be playable. I don't have that damn time. Jordan.
Yep.
You want to put a bow on that segment?
I mean, sure. It kind of sounded like you had additional stuff to add to the end of that sentence. But anyways, I give it 3 chairs. Y'all gave it 4. So we're going to average that out to 3 for the controls. And finally, since you're the only one who really seemed to like it, Pedro, you can start off the fun segment.
Yeah, I genuinely didn't hate it. Now, while we were playing the game on Thursday, Jordan, you mentioned that you mentioned the similarity between what we were doing, basically going around, setting down, dropping some soldiers off, coming back up, then going to another place. It was similar to Windward. And that kind of started my brain on little...
Well, what I was specifically referring to was that mode in Windward where you're basically running around doing the capture and control thing, which is that sort of arena combat mode. Because what you're going into, I read your thing ahead of time. You're right. Windward has a lot more emphasis on the stuff surrounding the ship combats, about establishing trade routes and so on and so forth. I was specifically referring to that one aspect of the game.
Yeah, and I do agree with you, and that's kind of what's kickstarted my brain into that whole thing, because Heliborne is the opposite of Windward in that sense, because Windward, the combat and the transportation-y bits and the whole capturing the villages, they're all equally important. But in Heliborne, the combat is where the focus is, and well, in our case on Thursday, it was basically the focus was actually on being able to maneuver the helicopter around while still hitting the targets as we were. Dropping off soldiers and picking up the wounded soldiers, they're mostly secondary unless the mission that you're playing specifically requires it. And I guess this one is not as open world as Windward was, because this one is very much, you do a mission, you have this teeny tiny map, and that's it. On Windward, you do have more of that open world type of thing. Ben?
So, man, check this out. I would have said 2, like, straight up, it's functional. I could understand playing it with some friends and all that. But I got to say, you got to have a bad time, because really, the only way you're going to have a really decent... Keep counting how many times I say really here, because I'm trying to kind of be polite.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Like, really, try to keep track. You would have fun. We had fun. Of course, we can play basically anything, and we're going to drill some fucking entertainment value out of it. Usually, the more fucked up and
hell, we got some out of Secret of the Magic Crystals multiplayer.
This is true. If you go back and watch the entire stream, you're just seeing the parts where we weren't sitting trying to figure out how the fuck do you start an online game. I mean, the UX design of this game actually has cost it a chair, in my opinion. And that's what it did, because it is not fucking clear what you're supposed to do, how you set up a squadron, And I know, yes, you opened it the first time and everything was perfectly clear to you because you're smarter than I am. Sure. Just like, that's why we named it We Suck
La-di-da,
At
Mr. High IQ.
on the videos because I think we got like 2 or 3 comments on that stream 'cause a lot of people aren't playing this. And you could definitely tell that they wanted to talk some shit, be like, you don't know what you're doing. But they were also smart enough to realize the series is called We Suck At. So like, oh, they didn't want to be that guy.
No,
single player.
The link to like the Steam community guide for the game on how you get the basics.
That's another
going.
problem, Pedro. I mean, when your tutorial is based on the Steam community guide, because you just walk into this, you think you're going to sit down. Hey, man, I've been playing PC games for 30 plus years. Go to 30 for a curveball. Is there single player in it? Yes, technically there is. You're not going to have fun with it if you do something is wrong with you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the multiplayer, unless you have a crew with people together, the actual community right now, I'm not speaking out of turn. It's kind of dead, Pedro.
Yeah, it is. Admittedly, there aren't a whole lot of people playing this game online, and that's actually one of its biggest shortcomings, because going back to Windward, teeny tiny game as it is, very bare bones in its implementation, it still has quite a few people playing it. This one just, okay, it had a few servers while we were playing, but you go in at certain times a day, and it's just dead. Now...
Well, here's one thing though. Bringing it back to sort of the whole Windward thing. There's very much a simulation aspect to this game. So much so that I would actually probably chalk it up in I would chalk the game in the simulation category. And like that's the thing, if you're like an amateur drone pilot, or you're into RC helicopters, or you're a military history buff, it seems like you might get a kick out of this game. But the gameplay itself was down to capture and control mode from Windward, with more awkward controls and Russians, and that's it. And I'm sure all the helicopters are super cool for all the enthusiasts and whatnot, but this does nothing for me. I'm sitting there with my mouse in one hand and my dick in another, trying to figure out which one's more entertaining. And I think you know the answer to that question.
Yeah, for me, I enjoy it the same way that I enjoyed American Truck or Euro Truck Simulator. It's about the driving, or in this case, flying. For me, that's the catharsis of successfully navigating the helicopter and pulling off a tricky landing while under fire, and then taking off after the soldiers are done and they're doing their thing. I really enjoyed just, starting Heliborne and picking one of the longer missions and just flying around doing those tricky landings. In that respect,
I can fly.
It tickles that part of my brain where the feeling of catharsis lives.
Well, I think you're right. It's definitely not a deep game. It's a pick-up, fuck-around game. This is not something...
it is.
Right.
Absolutely.
I've just been entertaining myself throughout this entire review, just watching people crash into fucking mountainsides.
And in that respect, the catharsis is really good. But then again, games like Windward don't really cost $20. So,
yeah. So, I mean, Ven, you and I would agree it kind of falls into like the one chair category.
When it comes to fun, man, if I'm just being honest, this is not something I ever plan on revisiting. I just don't think there's enough there. If I gotta say what I gotta say, it's definitely going to be I'm going to drag this back out. If you'd give me this and say, hey, man, this is our prototype. This is our early access game. It's like, doing all right. Pretty good job. I think Maddie pointed out there's a bunch of DLC. It seems to be cosmetic. Therefore, I could kind of consider that harmless.
Yeah.
It's not pay to win. Good on that. But it doesn't feel like a baked game. And they're rolling out, the latest update, which we covered earlier in the show. If you're just watching this cut out by a standalone, go back and watch it. They're changing like core mechanic changes post-release, and I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know if that's going to be able to retain the community, what community there is when you do things like that. So I hope it does evolve into something better, because you could probably make a fun, just fuck around game for somebody to walk in and pick up and play with, but this isn't it. Not right now.
No. So I think all in all, it's gonna get one chair for the fun category.
Yeah, even though I liked it, it is.
You got outvoted.
It's yeah.
So that tallies all up to a 2 chair. It gets Le Strider. 2 chairs, not sure if want. Like I said, if you're into like military simulation or helicopters or like military history or anything like that, I think you would actually get a kick out of this game. If you're just looking for a game that's like sort of enjoyable from like a walk-in, pick up and play experience, this is not it.
No, and that's all we can say about it. It passes QA in the fact that it runs.
And after we managed to work around the user interface, user experience, whatever you want to call it, you can't actually find your friends because they are highlighted in green. So they did put some thought into it.
Yeah.